My name is Bartley Miller. I'm one of the partners here at Sterling. We do these programs. It used to be when we started this about 2 years ago, we seemed to do them quarterly. Now it seems like we're doing these once or twice a month. And if you're a client of ours and you're asking why don't I get invited to every one, a lot of them are industry specific, so don't get mad at us. But I think we can all get something out of today. And just a few logistics. So obviously lunch was outside. There's drinks over here. The restrooms are down this hall on the left. If you need anything, find somebody with a Sterling name tag and they will give you whatever you want. Cocktail, the shirt off their back, whatever you need. We're here to serve.
It might be ugly.
Yeah, it might be ugly. Special thanks to one of my colleagues, Knox Wyatt, for helping me put this on. We appreciate all your efforts in that. So two guys that we consider to be a friends of the firm. Justin Cannell and Stan Wilson from Ellerbe Thompson. I'm going to let them introduce themselves as I think that's often better. One thing that we have a relationship with them and had a relationship with them. They are Georgia Bulldogs. I am as red and black. I bleed red and black. So we got a lot of love for these guys. They're both big Bulldogs. We have a relationship with them where anytime our clients need employment legal advice, we can send you over there and they'll give you some free legal advice. And obviously if it gets more complicated and you need to engage them, they'll do that. So we think a lot of these guys and we appreciate them being here today. To put on this presentation, and Justin, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Marley. Appreciate it. Well, good afternoon, everyone. As Marley said, my name is Justin Connell. This is Stan Wilson. I work for Stan, so I generally carry his books around and all that good stuff. No different today, so here we are. A little bit about us. We are Ellerbe Thompson. The firm has been around for a long time. Just look at Stan. It was around for a long time, even when he started. He'll tell you the gray hair is from practicing law, but for those of us like Bartley and Knox that know his children, we know that's not the case. We know that's where it comes from.
That's the first truth he spoke.
We are a boutique litigation firm specializing in labor and employment law. We also do some complex litigation, which is a fancy way of saying business disputes. When they get into lawsuits, we handle those. We have bucked the trend to become a behemoth firm. We have tried to stay small and nimble, which helps us when we represent our clients across the country. We actually go get to represent our clients. For anybody that you don't hire a law firm, you hire a lawyer. And we found in some of the bigger firms we wouldn't have that opportunity if we were to travel around the country to represent our clients. So we've also stayed small, helps us stay flexible with respect to our rates. Sometimes Stan accuses me of running the largest pro bono practice in the city sometimes. So we're able to do that. But would any of you have any questions throughout this presentation, stop us, talk to us. If it's a real hard question, I'll make Stan answer it. If I can answer it, I will. Otherwise, we're just going to run through this stuff. It's going to be a little bit dry. There's not a whole lot of sexiness to independent contractors and affordable health care, but for those of you that don't know, the Department of Labor has made a really big push, and I'll show this to you in the slides, about cracking down on misclassification of independent contractors. So independent contractors are a really effective tool for employers. We don't have to pay payroll taxes, we don't have to provide them workers' comp insurance, we don't have to pay unemployment insurance for them, we don't have to pay them overtime, all that good stuff. But the consequences of a misclassification can be horrific. And the biggest to that really is the overtime with respect to wage and hour. We, in our office, have handled over the last 4 years, we're averaging 6 or 7 collective FLSA actions a year. And for those of you that are a little bit out of the loop with FLSA actions, that is now a $1 billion industry. So overtime and paying overtime and classifying employees is important. So we have 267 slides to get through, so let's get started. That was a joke. I'm not going to put anybody. Wouldn't be a legal presentation without a lot of BS from lawyers, so we can run through that. All right, so we always like to start things out. How do you manage to get fired first day on the job, Winnie the Pooh? Well, it helps if you put the costume on the right way. I'll let you guys take a minute. And sometimes I do like the pointer here. It helps me kind of point some things out. So just to show you that we're not, that slide did ruin some of my best childhood memories of one of my favorite characters, though. Today's agenda, get you guys out of here as fast as possible. We will work on that. Other thing we're going to talk about, I went over just a little bit. Nobody likes to hear lawyers talk, but we're going to try to run through this. What we're doing is providing you some very good information in the packets. And we've got packets somewhere here that we're going to hand out to you. We've got some do's and don'ts worksheets in there that is great information for you to take back. And again, nobody likes to hear lawyers talk. I don't even like lawyers, so we're going to again run through this. We're going to hang around today afterwards, so I know a lot of times you don't want to air dirty laundry or questions you've got at your own places out loud in front of everybody. So we're going to, when it's over, we're going to go over here to the side and stand around and take any questions that you've got. So, you know, free legal advice starts today, and Stan's blood pressure will start going up. We can start talking about free legal advice, but we are here, so take advantage of us. And bet you've never heard a lawyer say that, so we'll start here. Here's what I'm talking about. The DOL, the update for 16 is in 15. We have a renewed emphasis on this now billion-dollar industry. The wage and hour division is going to start emphasizing the importance of whether an individual's service is an integral part of the company's business. So essentially, we're looking at employees and saying, what is it these people are doing for the business, and how important is it for this business? And that's where we're going to start our classification analysis. This is a small disclaimer here. None of our slides and none of this information is going to apply if any of you have operations in the People's Republic of California. That is a completely different ball game, and that is a completely different scenario that we would need to do our own presentation on California and California state-specific laws. So just as an overview, this is generally based on federal law. Some of these things I really want to, I'm going to be reading some quotes. I know that's not something everybody wants to hear, but these quotes are pretty effective, and what I like to do is scare the hell out of everybody in the room, pass out our cards, and then we leave. But unfortunately, we're here to give you guys advice today, so I do want to read some things. One of the things that you'll see here from the Administrator Will, when he doubled down on his efforts to commit to getting back those funds that the government wants back from us, he's quoted as saying that the ultimate goal is determining whether the worker is economically dependent on the employer and thus its employees, or thus an employee, or is really the business is in the business for him or herself. So that's what we're really going to start looking at. That has kind of changed the effect of what the way that the courts, the way the DOL used to look at independent contractors. Essentially, in a nutshell, and nobody else is recording this other than the video there, I tend to say some things about governmental agencies that we deal with sometimes, and I've had that recorded and heard my voice played back in an interview one time, and that was not fun, but I guess we're videotaping today, so I'm going to be good. The government is back after the funds that essentially been leaving on the table. So that's what this ultimately comes down to. So as we go through, I'll start trying to pull that out a little bit, explain that a little bit better. What has changed, again, it's the new initiative, they're after it. The DOL wants to say that your employees are no longer, that your independent contractors are no longer truly independent contractors. They are employees. And now you're going to start paying payroll taxes on them. You're going to start paying workers' comp insurance for them. You're going to start paying into unemployment, all of those things. So, I don't know, how many of you have independent contractors? Quite a few? Okay. I kind of feel, with this slide, feel like that guy that stands up there and says, for my presentation today, I'm going to read word for word from my PowerPoint, but I'm going to try not to do that. But these are actual quotes that have been taken from the DOL, and I just wanted you guys to take a look at these and take a minute to look at those, because what they are, it's powerful stuff, and it's really scary, because now we're getting into the mindset of what the initiatives are moving forward. And for those of us that are sitting back going, you know, geez, I do have some independent contractors. I'm going to have some close calls on, once we run through the factors test, I'm going to have some close calls as to how I'm really classifying these individuals. That's what we're going to see a lot more of. If we had our crystal ball and we're looking into the crystal ball, we're going to see a lot more of that stuff as we start moving forward, 16, 17, into 18. These are some of we've been talking about the implications of misclassification. So if we've got an independent contractor and we have classified them as an independent contractor, and now all of a sudden these are things that we are now faced with. What we'll get into later is some more of the consequences, which would be back taxes, civil penalties, things of that nature. While the lawyers love this stuff, the plaintiff's lawyers love it for FLSA actions, what we talked about earlier. What you do is you take that employee, you go back 3 years, you come up with a formula for what you owe them in overtime, and then you have liquidated damages, which means we now are going to take that and put a multiplier of 2 on it. And we're going to put attorney's fees in it. So, again, this is a billion-dollar industry, and there's literally nothing we can do about it until it's taken up at the legislative level. So courts have refused to touch collective actions with respect to FLSA. They are easy to get a class certified. So one individual comes forward and says, hey, I'm one of many that is misclassified. I'm going to represent the group, whether they want to or not. If they choose to, they can opt into it, but they don't have to. But you still pay the lawyer anyway. So we'll talk about some of that stuff. What we want to try to emphasize today is, don't be a hero when it comes to classifying your employee with respect to independent contractor or an employee if it's a close call. If it's a close call, we always advise err on the side of caution. Call them an employee, because at the end of the day, what you're going to pay to prove to be right sometimes in a lawsuit far exceeds what it would cost just to pay what it would take to turn an independent contractor into an employee. And we call it the avoiding the I got this approach from our clients. What usually is, oh, we got this, we're good, and then this happens, and 2 months later we're in there trying to clean this thing up, and it turns into a real mess. So moving on, there are several different ways to determine how we're going to look at independent contractor status. There's an IRS test, which the IRS determines. DOL uses economic realities test. There's a state law test. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on the IRS 20-point test to kind of show you, give a little flavor for what that is. But then we're really going to focus on, and it's, again, going to be rough to get through it, but it's really good information for you guys to be able to take back with you. I'm going to go through the economic realities test for you to kind of show how you're going to look at classifying when you've got this independent contractor. You take their job duties, what they do, what they're doing every day, a day in the life of, and you start running through these tests. It really helps you to see whether or not they truly are an independent contractor and we've been paying them correctly, or are we facing a little bit of potential liability if it comes to fruition. So the IRS test is easy. We look at the behavioral indicators, financial indicators, relationship. This is the behavioral is, equipment, tools, things of that nature that we all go, that there's analysis that you go through. We call it the Donald Trump versus Jimmy Carter kind of mentality. So if you can see the kind of 2 ends of the spectrum there. With respect to financial indicators, again, show me the money. How do you handle expenses? If you reimburse expenses to an independent contractor, then the IRS would say that's a heavy factor that weighs in favor of them actually being an employee and not an independent contractor, because an independent contractor has the ability to have a profit or a loss from their own endeavors. Well, if we're reimbursing expenses to an independent contractor, that starts to look like that person is actually an employee. So that's one of the major factors that the IRS will look to. Reclassification, if the IRS is successful, this is something that that they can do. They'll go back and we'll have to pay penalties, interest, and then we'll pay back taxes that they want to recoup on that independent contractor that we've been calling an independent contractor, but now that individual, according to the IRS, is now an employee. This is where we start the DOL test. This is really where the hidden dangers are that we see because of the wage and hour implications. We get in our office every day, every morning, we get all of the lawsuits that were filed, publication that shows us all of the lawsuits that were filed in federal court in the state of Georgia, as well as the state cases that were filed within the metro Atlanta area. There is not a day that goes by that we don't see on the federal reporter that an FLSA action has been filed somewhere in federal court, whether it's the Southern District, Middle District, or Northern District of Georgia. Every single day, there's an FLSA action filing. So it's happening. If you haven't been hit with it yet, then I heard a guy in a presentation one time said that just give it time. You know, it's like Novocaine, just give it time, it's coming. We counsel our clients a lot of times, will come to us after conducting a self-audit, and will say, hey, tell us what you think. What are we doing here? Take a look at this. Because there are ways that we can kind of head this stuff off the path before we get there. So you really want to make sure you're setting yourself up for success. So part one, we're looking at the integral part of the business, and then you guys can read this, what we're talking about here. The example would be in a construction company, right? Framers are going to likely be employees, but software developers who design software that properly tracks bids and things of that nature, we're going to be comfortable with you calling that individual an independent contractor. That's the simple example. We've got examples that can go on and become pretty testy. With respect to part two, we're looking at managerial skills, affect the worker's opportunity. We're looking at profit and loss. Here, employees, by contrast to independent contractors, we don't have the ability to earn more or less depending on the amount of work that's provided, generally speaking. So again, I know this is extremely dry, but we're running through this stuff here. With respect to part three, independent contractors typically make capital investments to such a degree that they can operate as independent businesses. So when we counsel our employees on, our clients on looking into independent contractors, we always like for them to make sure that the independent contractor is incorporated, has an LLC, something of that nature, that they've set themselves up so that they look like have the ability to profit or loss from the work that's given. Part four of a 6-part test here, is there a special skill or initiative that's involved? Again, a lot of our clients look at this and they'll say that, whether or not the special skill and initiative, what that means is that, the DOL says that it's a factor that permits contractors to operate, again, independent businesses. So if you've got independent contractors that are working at your facility and they're not working anywhere else, and they're there for an extended period of time, the DOL will take the position that they are not an independent contractor, but they are in fact your employee, regardless of an agreement that you may have with them that says they're an independent contractor. The agreement, which we'll talk about in a minute, is not dispositive of the fact of whether or not they're an independent contractor or an employee. Part five is looking at the relationship between the worker and the employer, whether or not it's permanent or indefinite. That's what I was just hitting on. A lot of this stuff, again, these are factors that are looked at. So when we take a 30,000-foot view of this stuff, which is what the DOL does a lot of times before we get down into the weeds of it, they will make an initial assessment based on these 6 factors, and there are a few that are more important than others, and we'll hit on those just a little bit. The final one is the nature and degree of the control. This used to be the big one here. Used to be. DOL is now placing it on their economic dependence. So again, we're getting back to whether or not back up. The way that we used to be able to look at this with the DOL was what kind of control are we exerting over the independent contractor? Are we telling them where to show up for work every day? Are we telling them how the work has to be performed? Are we telling them how they're supposed to do the work? Are we more interested in just the results? That used to be the focus of the analysis. Now the analysis has become, are these individuals actually able to go out and do other things? So if they're working for us, we're calling them an independent contractor. If they don't show up on Tuesday because they're going to another job, how are we going to look at that internally? How are we, would there be discipline that would be issued? Would there be a warning that would be given? What, how would we handle that internally? And a lot of that will come from a DOL's analysis. So, red flags, these are things just to watch out for. So what we really advise clients is anybody that you have had working for you that used to be an employee and they retire, move on, do something else, decide they want to take a little bit of leave, what have you, you bring them back. We really advise not bringing them back as an independent contractor. That's a huge red flag for the DOL when they start going through our records, and we're trying to keep them from, keep the camel's nose out from up under the tent.
Justin, can I ask a question on as far as the test? We get a lot of questions in professional services around when we have an independent contractor and we're automatically providing coverage to that, whether it's professional liability coverage, some type of errors and omissions coverage, to that independent contractor. And we get the question a lot from clients and say, well, if I provide them coverage as an independent contractor, because we're assuming they have their own workers' compensation coverage.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't want to assume that.
Yeah, no, yeah, we better be assuming that they do.
Right, but as a on the professional liability side, we're providing them coverage under the professional liability policies. And the reason we want that is because we, as the employer or as the contracting party that they're working for, we want to be able to control the defense because we're obviously going to be party to whatever that is.
Absolutely.
Has the DOL come out ever and said, hey, that's an issue as it relates to qualifying as an independent contractor if you're providing them any type of insurance?
You've seen it.
Yes, I have. The DOL and maybe the IRS would say that that is a factor in favor of them being an employee.
Okay.
And if you are otherwise directing their work, when it's done, how it's done, the quality of it, you're getting very close to having an employee. We're debating this in our office this week, actually, whether to call someone a contractor as an attorney who's not necessarily going to be in the office anymore, or whether they're truly an employee. So that would be a factor, I think, partly in they're more employee-like than independent contractor. And this is, we're seeing a huge push on this.
Yep.
Many of you will remember years ago, the first big case was the dealings that the government as well as the employees of Microsoft had. All the programmers were told they were independent contractors. And 10 or 12 years later, they recovered, I think it was $96 million in back benefits, stock options, other things they had not gotten. So that used to be an area that those programmers were always independent contractors. And that took away that defense. So we'll gather some information for you on that when we get back to the office. But yes, you've hit upon a real issue.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, what is hot in the news now, Uber drivers, right? So there's a huge discussion right now as to whether or not Uber drivers are actually independent contractors or employees of Uber. So the courts will ferret that out and feel pretty confident that they're going to come down on the employee side, that Uber drivers are actually employees. So that's going to be a royal nightmare when they start going back to look at what the penalties are from that. I don't know if it's going to hit 96 million because that was the stock options. Generally, we push that, which were involved in the Microsoft issue, but the Uber number is going to be a big number when it comes down. So, tips, you guys can read through these when you get them. I spoke earlier a little bit about the value of written agreements, how they're not definitive, but they certainly help. So what we try to do is give you guys as much information as you can and then try to help you out and provide you with as much material as you can in order to show, if we do get an audit or we get a lawsuit, to show that all these different factors that we've put into this are actually making these individuals independent contractors and not employees. So this is just another piece of that. Conduct an audit now. This is in light of DOL's renewed efforts, in light of the administrator's interpretation that we looked at earlier. Use the 6-part economic realities test that we have provided here. There's more information in the package we're going to give you. And then call us. Happy to go over anything with you with respect to that. But this is this is going to be really important for us to take a look in the mirror as these things are coming down the pipe. So there you go, sir.
You want to take questions or wait till we finish?
Yeah, if you guys have any questions about independent contractor employee stuff, we'll take them now, we'll take them afterwards. You guys just let me know. Anything now? Any takers now?
Those subcontractors that are using their social security number as opposed to federal identification number for the company, would they be suspect?
Yes, they would. The question was, if someone's just using a social security number and saying, I'm an independent contractor, one of the first things we would advise is that they create their own LLC and have a profit and loss type company to operate through. I realize that's form over substance, but it is important based upon what the government agencies will tell you on that issue. Other questions? And we'll save some time, Dan. Go ahead.
Part 4 of 5, could you tell everybody how long the look back is? That the government's, how far back they're looking to see how the relationship changed?
2 to 3 years.
Right. The statute of limitations on a lot of these things is a 3-year look back, and that's a lot of liability. I will say that. When a client gets one of these cases where they've misclassified people and they've really done it, we have a fine mess. And it's easy to misclassify because you save money in the short term by doing it. Let me stand up that way. Giving y'all respect. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Does anybody know what this is? Somebody, the first time I ever asked that at a seminar, somebody said, it's a big mess. No, I say that proves that all of us in this room are really not crazy. When we're driven crazy by Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. That is a diagram about how it's supposed to work. I stole that out of a book. I have looked at it, and you can actually see the lines drawn and see all the different agencies that are involved in enforcing this law. And so I say that we're really not crazy. This law is just difficult to deal with. And you have the Health and Human Services Department involved, the IRS, the Department of Labor, and all of the rest. So I always start with this to say, this is difficult. As we were talking about before the presentation began, the answers change each week or each month. The deadlines get pushed out, or you're not sure if the deadline has actually changed for what you must file or deliver to your employees. So this is not easy. I'm going to hit some high points for you today of things we're seeing as the law firm to many of these clients. Sterling provides you great advice on compliance and how to structure some of your benefit programs and what the risks are. We rely on them too for that. You should continue to do that. The lawyers just clean up the details afterwards. There's a Don Henley song that says lawyers just clean up all the details, and that is what we do, which is when things start going wrong. So I'll talk just briefly about what we're seeing from a legal standpoint, and then we will take your questions, meet with you afterwards, as Justin said. I wanted to show you this. Can't see from back there, but it'll be in the handout materials. Employers provide the health care to 58% of those who are participating in the healthcare markets, as we understand it. That is not going to change much. So as employers, we are on the hook. We will be the people providing most of the coverage in the coming years. And the government is going to look to us to do that. And they're going to control how you do that. So I don't think this is going away. The one thing that's interesting is that the exchanges of the uninsured, the supposedly 55 million of uninsured right now, the exchanges are supposed to pick up 24 million of those over the next 10 years or so. Of course, United Healthcare just bailed out. The biggest healthcare provider, I think, in the country. I may be wrong about that. But they have basically decided they're getting out of the market. So this could put additional pressure on us as the employer to cover more people who don't go out to the exchanges necessarily. You'll see Medicaid's going to pick up 16 million, and then I think the estimate is 31 million people will still be uninsured at the end of this 10-year period. So I show you that to say we're going to continue to be on the hook as the employer. The other thing I will mention is that, tying back to what Justin was talking about, is that if you have independent contractors who are really employees, they're entitled to the Obamacare information from you and the opportunity to join your health care. So we're anticipating a big push in that. And we've already seen a few clients who have decided to go one way or the other on that, and it's pretty nerve-wracking. Some of these clients have hundreds of what they call contractors who are really not. So be prepared for that to be an area of focus as we move forward with the health care. Most of you have just finished, well, let's see if I can make this work. Most of you have just probably finished filling out a lot of 1095C forms and having them sent out. Somebody was telling me, somebody was sharing they did a lot of them, a whole lot of them. And we don't know whether we filled them out correctly. We don't know whether they got delivered correctly. But I will tell you that the purpose of those is really to, the goal by the government is to determine whether you have to pay penalties and whether you provided affordable coverage to these employees. Just be prepared, that's coming. That's the purpose of those lines. So once the time begins for the audits, that's what these will be partially used for. We have a big client that is in the service industry. They decided they might pay rather than offer coverage. They said if we offer coverage to these thousands of employees in the Southeast and they all accept and pay their portion of the coverage, we could almost be out of business paying our share. Okay, so their theory was initially they were going to pay, not play, so to speak. We convinced them to try it for a year. They were amazed at the very few number of people who accepted the coverage. Okay, I don't know what your experiences are, but I'll tell you from our experiences, playing the game, at least initially, is working out much better for our clients rather than paying these fines for not offering the coverage. So that's the first thing I would share with you just as a conclusion of what we're seeing. Have some obligations by June 30th, I think is my number, to send all of your forms in to the IRS. You've got some filing coming up, at least electronically, if you do it like that. If you're big enough, you have to do all of this electronically now with the IRS. If you're a smaller company, I think 250 or more forms. Did I get that number right off the top of my head? Thank you. Help me through this. Then you can still file paper copies, but they don't want the other information. They like it electronically because they can analyze the information through their computer programs as opposed to someone sitting there and manually trying to figure out what you have turned over to them. Let's talk about some of the legal claims we're seeing and the penalties. Am I moving around too much on your video?
Thank you.
Maybe you don't want me on your video. Let me talk about this potential liability that all of us may be running up because we've cut a lot of workers to fewer than 30 hours. Or when we hire someone new, we say, you can work 29 hours a week, that's it. Okay? There are still a couple of statutes hanging around that may protect those employees. ERISA 510, all of you know about ERISA, which protects employees and their benefits, would indicate that if we had employees who were entitled to coverage and so we cut them all back to 29 hours so that they would not get coverage, they may still have a claim that we have interfered with their health care. We've all ducked and hidden and acted like that's not going to happen. It's still out there. By the same token, the Fair Labor Standards Act, they added a provision in the Fair Labor Standards Act to help govern some of the coverage the employees are entitled to. That provision would basically say that if an employee is brought in or is told that you're reducing their hours just to prevent them from getting the coverage, that statute may also provide them with an opportunity to sue you for the coverage. okay? So my advice to you is to never talk about that within your company. Don't write emails about it. Don't let the CFO say, if we just cut everybody to 29 hours, this will be great. Those kind of memos, those emails, it's amazing what we all write in emails, and those statements are going to come back to haunt us. So cut those out over the coming months and years, because I think this is going to be a plaintiff's a great set of claims. They're just waiting for the liability to build up, okay, so that they can collect their 40% or whatever it may be of the recoveries. So if those are coming, alert your people that that's a possibility. We think the significant tax implications are coming in a couple of years, but it's based upon what you're doing now. It's based upon how you're dealing with employees, what you're turning in. So the inaccurate and incomplete forms that you're filling out right now, the IRS says that if you fill those out incorrectly, they will charge you $250 per form for every one that's incorrect, and they can fine you up to $3 million, I think they say, if you've got enough forms. I think it's great there's a cap at some point, but $3 million is a lot of money. You're going to see that happen unless you self-correct errors. Okay, they're still saying, the IRS, that until we issue a fine on you, if you find problems and go back and correct them, it's just like filing an amended tax return. So don't fret if you've got some problems, because everybody does these filings. I heard someone say, as they were coming in, that they contracted out all of this work to do all the forms for their employees, and they're wrong. They're supposed to be experts, but they're wrong. That can still be fixed. But if not, you're going to be facing the penalties. As I said earlier, the pay or play issue and the fines that come if you do not offer the appropriate participants or potential participants the chance to have health care. I think you're about to see a lot of those penalties come out right now. They're not going to penalize the individuals as quickly for the individual mandate, but as employers, we're the ones that are going to be hit. So make sure you have done, we've always called that the sledgehammer. If you're not going to play, you're going to pay, and that is coming. You can see that in the next year or so. You're going to hear some real horror stories about clients or companies that do that. The unaffordable coverage, we leave a lot of that to your providers, and also to a risk-benefit analysis, which can be done by Sterling. But I think these are the two areas, whether you're offering affordable coverage and whether you're playing instead of paying, are going to be the areas that they really attack. Somebody mentioned to me as they came in that the issue of control groups has come up with many of their clients and customers. The people I've talked with within the agencies, they're looking forward to taking on employers who say, I've got a company with 40 people in it, I've got another company that I operate out of the same location with 80, I've got this many, I've got this many, and we're going to treat them all as separate companies and act like we're really not covered by all of these rules and regulations. And the only way I know to answer that is, yes, you are. You are covered. And you have probably got enough of control and then a relationship of operations and ownership and things like that. So a lot of our small clients who were told years ago, break up all your companies, give them different names and different LLCs, they're liable to be sucked back together. So if you've got that going on, take a look at that now and know that that may not work for you. So those are the main things that we're seeing right now in this area. I've got just some future things you should be watching out for. Plans, they've held off on these non-discrimination rules. In other words, providing greater benefits for those who are highly compensated. You're probably going to have to do some testing in the coming years, just like you do on your retirement plans when you have highly compensated people that get higher contributions made from them. Be on the watch out for that. The Cadillac tax has been delayed again, as I understand it, until 2020. And you would think, well, employers got that done. The unions got that done. Okay? Keep in mind it was the unions, our friends over on the other side of the fence, because so many of their members were enjoying highly valued benefits. So that's what happened there. It wasn't so much the corporate lobby, but the union lobby got that done with the president and his group. So you'll see these additional guidance coming out, we think, on these other areas. And that's what you can expect in 2016. I think I've hit the high points for you. Oh, you're still here. I told Bartley yesterday, I thought you left, that, by the way, thank you for having us, and Knox, and all of you guys. We greatly respect all of you and your group. I told him I would cover one other thing that's coming, and I just want to give you a heads up, and that's the new, totally unrelated to the topics, the new DOL regulations. The Department of Labor is going to issue new rules on exemptions, and we're talking about exemptions from overtime. Most of you familiar with what's coming there? If you call people a manager or a supervisor or a professional or whatever they may be, or they run an administrative department of your company, right now those people are being paid like $455 a week or more. That's the DOL rule that says if they perform the right job functions and you pay them at least $455 a week, you can call them exempt from overtime. That's about to change, and it's going to change in the next couple of months, so just get prepared. The word we hear is that the Department of Labor is going to propose $970 a week as the minimum amount you can pay an exempt employee. That's $50,000 a year in round terms. There are a lot of people who have supervisors who are paid less than that, particularly out from the Atlanta area. A lot of our clients have a tremendous number of those people, and so the question quickly becomes, are we going to raise the salaries of the first line supervisors? Then what do we do for the next level of management and the next level of management? Because they'll all be bumping up pretty rapidly. This is going to have a big impact. Some of our clients are saying, well, we'll just make everybody an hourly employee. Well, run the numbers on that. Have your CPAs, we have some in the room, run the numbers on that, where people have been working 50, 55 hours a week, and you're saying, well, we'll just make them hourly and pay 15 hours of overtime. That may not work so well. The Department of Labor, one last thing, has not said they're going to change the duties test, as in, hey, what is this person doing every day? Are they really supervising somebody, or are they really just a working foreman? Right now, we can get away with that. If somebody's given some directions and instructions, if they're supervising other people, they may be exempt, and they can be paid a pretty low salary. We're hearing rumors that they're going to say that that employee has to spend at least 50% of their time actually managing other people, doing management functions. Think about it. There are very few people who manage all day long, truly manage all day long and don't do anything else but direct the workforce and that type of thing. So we've got a big shock coming, I'm afraid. Maybe we'll do some of our webinar on that when it comes out, because we're all speculating on what this will look like. But get ready, it's coming. Let's take some questions. Or we'll take questions afterwards. We ran over. Okay.
On the reporting, you may not know the answer to this, but
I probably don't.
well, we haven't ever had a clear answer. But
Okay.
if you make a good faith effort
Right.
in filling out the forms, then you can be potentially exempt from any fines or penalties.
That
But
is
you know
correct.
what entails a good faith effort. Have
I
you
think-
heard any?
I have not. It's a case-by-case analysis of what did you do, what did you research. That would be put into a position letter or a meeting with the IRS. It really is, did you really try hard? Did you seek advice? Did you call Sterling? How about that? Did you
Never had enough insurance.
no, did you do those types of things? Because I think people who fill them out haphazardly and then don't go back and try to make a correction, those are the people who are going to be in trouble.
The 50% rule,
Yep.
has the Department of Labor explain where they're getting 50%? And as the business industry commented,
Yes.
where do they come out?
Two things the Department of Labor did on this issue. When they issued the proposed rules, it was all about the dollar number, whether it would go to 970 or whatever. At the very end of the request for comments, they said, also let us know what you think about the duties test. That is the duties test that was in place 25 years ago. And when there was a Republican in the White House, they changed that and made it much easier to meet, is what it amounts to. So this would be a question of, do you go back and say that a management person must spend at least half of their time truly managing? A lot of people think, a lot of experts think, that it was a bit of a trick by the Department of Labor to say, we met our duty to put people on notice this may change by those couple of lines in the request for comments, and now we're going to just lay it on you in the final rules. That will be a big shock to all of our systems. I'm not saying that it will happen, but there's much speculation and rumor that that's coming.
Has the business lobby come in at a lower percentage, or what was their position?
The business lobby has been very loud on it. They received, I think, more comments on these proposed rules than any rules ever except ERISA 25, 30 years ago. So this has been a hot topic from the business lobby, big time. Yes?
Is there a specific number of employees that you have to be over in order to be classified as a manager?
You have to supervise 2 or more full-time employees to be what we would normally, they call it the executive exemption, but it's really, we call it the supervisory exemption. And then there's an exemption for outside salespeople, for those who run an administrative department of your company, and for professionals. Lawyers are exempt from overtime. I remind him of that every day.
So in healthcare, a lot of people have exempt status, salary, that are over certain like projects.
Right.
The owner sells, but they're supposed to do something in massive. Or you might have like one accounting person that.
Right. Accountants are the very best example of how difficult this is. If an accountant, you can have someone who is college trained and has a degree in accounting, and if they are doing basic menial tasks that require no independent thought, the Department of Labor would say they should be paid hourly, that they are not exercising enough discretion, independent judgment, and knowledge to really be classified as exempt from overtime. And we see that a lot. The same issue comes with paralegals in our world. If a paralegal is simply copying documents, there's no way they can be exempt.
You have like nurses.
Right? Nurses are considered professionals who are exempt unless they're not actually doing the true nursing work. If they're just filling out a chart or something maybe all day long, and they have a nursing degree, but they're really not acting as a nurse, that's a close call.
When do these issues arise? Stan? I mean, so other than the employee going to the Department of Labor,
Right.
I mean, when do these exemptions, because I remember we went through this in our own firm like 3 or 4 years ago,
Right.
of who should be exempt, who's not exempt, and we argued about it internally.
Oh, it's a tough question.
Yeah.
The way the things come up with, we see them come up, that the clients then come to us and say, what do we do? So often it is somebody becomes unemployed and they go to the Georgia Department of Labor and say, I want to sign up for unemployment. And we say, oh, they're not an employee, they're not on the roster. And the Georgia Department of Labor says, yes, they are an employee and you will pay back back contributions. In fact, we want to know about all of your independent contractors that you think you shouldn't have been paying FICA fees.
So what about on the exemption side? So
The exemption side, it comes up, once again, in large groups of employees. For example, customer service representatives have been a big target. And someone will go see a plaintiff's lawyer and say, I work in a call room, and we're all working 12 hours a day, and there are 50 of us. And they will get a plaintiff's lawyer together, all 50 together. That's how that works. A lot of it works with employees who are disgruntled. You can call them disloyal. There's a lot of advertising in this area by the plaintiff's lawyers. The joke in our business is that somebody calls up Kenny Nugent because they've had a car wreck, and his recording says, "Are you paid overtime each day?" You know, it's just an area they're advertising and seeking information from people on all of these issues.
It's not disgruntled former employees, it can be disgruntled current employees.
You need to take some questions.
We see a lot of that.
So I would add, just from a liability perspective, we talked about the contract a minute ago. You know, I deal with this every day with my clients on the professional service side. You know, every independent contractor relationship you have is different.
Exactly.
And with my clients, we have to evaluate every single relationship independently. And I can tell you that a lot of my clients get to the point where they say, you know what, we need to make them employees. Because evaluating each one of these, making sure the contract's appropriate, making sure that we address the liability in the contract, the identification language is perfect, it's just a headache administratively. Now, we all know, and I have plenty of clients who an executive within the organization wants to make as many possible independent contractors, right?
CFO.
And a lot of people in this room are saying, well, wait a second, there's a lot of other issues related to that. And it's a struggle. And I can tell you during claim time, so, you know, if you have an employee, they're going to be automatically covered in your insurance. If it's an independent contractor, it depends whether they're covered. So it just becomes a huge gray area.
You're exactly right, and I know I stuck Justin with the hard stuff today, but that 6-part test, it's a nightmare. Or trying to go through all of the factors the IRS would look at. So most of the time, our clients eventually capitulate and do what some of yours do, which is say, okay, they're an employee. Now that we're done with that, we don't have to worry about that. But it does bring in all of the other issues.
Which is what the government wants.
Tax revenue, they're expecting like 10 billion out of over the next 6 or 8 years out of finding those independent contractors who are really employees. That's the goal. They have a goal. So you're right, money. It's all about the money.
Is it a complete safe harbor if an independent contractor is incorporated?
No.
It's not?
No, Joe, here's the question, is it a complete safe harbor if an independent contractor has their own business, license or whatever?
It helps.
Really, it helps a lot, Knox. It is certainly a factor the other way when they just have a social security number, as she asked about, and that's what they hand to you. I will say this, the IRS has become very savvy at tracking down that very issue when a 1099 is issued to a social security number holder, as opposed to an LLC or whatever. The government says those independent contractors should really be a business making a profit or a loss based upon what they do. That's why paying them their expenses for certain things is not cool in the analysis, so to speak. So we better quit, hadn't we? We promised to get them out of here at 12:30.
We're going to try. Any other questions?
Other questions, and we'll take them up here afterwards too, because they're good questions. And so far, we haven't said anything really, really stupid, I don't think.
You have the handout, some contact info, and then...
Well, yeah, oh, yeah. And Bartlett has already said we'll give them free services.
Bartlett will cover your first 2 minutes, and after that...
Those of you who came in late missed that, but apparently we will. We'd love to talk to any of you about any of these employment issues. So.
Thanks, guys.